This is the Relevant Podcast.
It's episode 1195, and it's a Relevant Podcast. Here in Orlando, I'm your host, Cameron Strang, and joining me from Loverland, Virginia, is Jesse Carey.
Hello, hello.
From Chicago, our managing editor, downtown Emily Brown.
Hey, y'all.
And that's it. You only get the three of us because this was a holiday weekend. I know this is the first day back into the swing of things, but, you know, we have to, this isn't a live show, so we had to record when certain people might be on vacation right now, so. Anyway,
that's right.
So congrats to you, listener. You've just experienced 3 stress-free, wonderful days of a long weekend. We have not yet joined you. So,
do you guys have like vacation personas? Like I think about like on The Office, there's like Date Mike. You know, like he has all of his different little like personas. Is there like
yes,
a
Jesse
vacation?
Wears a bandana. Yes, Jesse puts on a bandana when it's a long
right,
weekend.
an American flag bandana, and sometimes a Union Jack bandana, depending on the destination and like, you know, how loud and aggressive I want to be. I actually go Union Jack for that one, and do a fake British accent, of course.
Jesse, I got to be honest with you, for the listener, you sound like you were at the very end of a very stressful week. You sound exhausted.
That's weird. I thought we were recording this on Tuesday morning live. I am. That is true. And I also hosted the neighborhood the neighborhood fantasy football draft last night, and
there it is.
I had people at my house till about 1 a.m.
That's what it is. And you're not a 1 a.m. guy anymore. You guys go to bed
Not
pretty
at all.
early.
I go to bed at like 10. You know,
what's that like?
But I had a lot of fun. We had it's kids and parents, and so a lot of the kids went home earlier than that, but a lot of the parents hung out, and I had a very busy Friday that started at, my first thing was like 7:30 this morning, and I am tired.
You're like, I just picked up my kid from school, and same thing, long weekend, whatever. And I would have thought, like, I would see excitement on his face at Carline, like, oh, yeah, the car's here, I'm free, long weekend, here we go, smile. No, he looks like you. He is drained. I'm like, are you okay? He's like, it's just been a long week. I'm exhausted. I'm like, okay, but like.
Well, my last thing today doesn't end till 8:30 tonight.
Oh,
so
no.
That has to be illegal somehow, some way.
Well, I don't
know all the laws in this country, but I think there should be one.
Well, it comes down to time zones, because when you're working with people on the West Coast, that is really where
you're literally talking to somebody who has staff in LA.
Yeah.
Like the end of day updates, come through mid-evening, late evening for me. And it's just their normal signing off for the day, about to go to dinner,
Yeah, exactly. And I think time zones should be illegal. That's my big conclusion, because we all work in businesses where there are, recordings and things on our calendar all the time, and to your point, I mean, we're in 2 different time zones right now with the people on this call, and frequently with 3 if Marty's on, time zone confusion happens way too much. We should be way past this, but it happens all the time. I think we just eliminate them entirely, and people just have to readjust to one universal time zone, which will be East Coast, because that's where I live, and I'm not making the adjustment.
Because normally, you would think it actually should be more of a Central Mountain, middle of the country time zone. Like you split the difference.
Well, I mean, the world is circular. So are we talking about time zones throughout the world, or just the U.S.?
Global. It's got to be global. It doesn't work, because someone tonight on the call I'm on is in Australia.
Wait a second. Wait. So you're advocating
global time.
Do you remember
zone.
back in the day when our friend, former cast member Adam Smith, moved to Sydney, and we would have him come on, and we would have to coordinate that he had to record with us at like 5 a.m. and we had to record at like 5 p.m. so we could like intersect for like 1 hour. So you're advocating that the poor people of Australia have to work during midnight.
Tonight. The call I'm on tonight is with someone in Australia. And, it's been very difficult to coordinate all of this. And so there's only one solution.
Can I just say it's you and your business's choice to do that? You don't have to.
Well, in this case, we kind of do. And I think the solution once again, is a global time zone that revolves around the East Coast of the United States.
Like, are we just going to force Australians to be like nocturnal, basically?
That's what I was trying to get to, that
Okay.
you're going to force half the world to work in the dark to accommodate your whim.
It's not going to be an easy transition, but it's the only one that makes sense, you know?
To you.
Well, to a lot of people on the East Coast. You know, the capital is Washington, D.C. It's only fair that they get to
Again,
dictate.
the
They get
U.S.
port-
capital is
If you're going to go time zone independent or neutral, you would go GMT. GMT neutral 0, Greenwich Mean Time. That's the global time zone demarcation.
What did they get to earn that? You tell me.
It was a treaty. It's Greenwich. I don't know. Anyway, East Coast is -5 off Greenwich Mean Time. So
not
like
in this new system. This new system will be enforced with military efforts, by the way.
I like it.
This
Is this what the party that you're going to run on? The what is it called? The other party or something?
The America Party? What was it?
Adopting the Common Sense Party.
Common Sense Party.
It's adopting some concerning positions when it comes to authoritarian impulses. But we will enforce this with the backing of the all branches, including Space Force of the military. Because even if you're in space, you're going to observe this time zone.
Oh, so this
even
is
if you're
truly a
outside.
universal time zone.
That's right. That's right.
Have you actually seen, you know, with all this talk about trying to do lunar expeditions and stuff like that, they're trying to figure out the time zones on the moon for this reason, to
Does
get
it
things
matter?
to like. No, yes, because if we're going to be having like more of a presence, long-term presence on the moon, we need to be able to coordinate. But its rotation, and it doesn't work with our 24-hour calendar because it's rotating on its own thing. It's got its own pace, and so they're trying to figure out like how to like, you know, figure out like what time is it on the moon if astronauts are living there.
So is it so we can like zoom them at an appropriate time on the moon?
Correct. Well, you don't want to call them while they're sleeping, you know. So
I guess that makes sense a little bit.
we're tackling the hard things here at the podcast.
The essential ones.
The essential ones, not the hard ones. That's right.
Yeah.
Coming up later, we talk to Jemar Tisby. He has a compelling new book that comes out today. It's called The Spirit of Justice, and it looks at like forgotten heroes of faith who sought justice. So looking forward to that conversation. We also have a game at the end that is very timely. Shall we say it's seasonal? College football seasonal. How's that? College football starts this past weekend, a couple days ago, in full force. So every year we've done like a mascot challenge. Is this a real mascot type of game? And this year we have a variation of that. So it's going to be fun. We're looking forward to that. But stay tuned. Up next, it'll be Slices.
Yay, sports.
You're listening to Wasia Project. The song is Somebody Come Through. Well, today's show is brought to you in part by Wired to Fish Coffee. So many companies are not rooted in Christian principles nowadays. However, they do exist. Meet Wired to Fish Coffee. Founded by Christian anglers who are crazy about the love of Jesus for his people, Wired to Fish Coffee gives back 25% of their net profits to faith-based programs and clean water initiatives. Wired to Fish Coffee also offers a smooth, robust taste rivaling any coffee shop brew. Give Wired to Fish Coffee a try today and join a community of people making a positive impact. Use code WeCare at wired2fishcoffee.com at checkout and get an additional bag for free. You can make a difference. Again, that's wired2fishcoffee.com. Okay, it's time for
Slices.
What do you have, Jesse?
All right. This one is unsurprising if you've been online at all in the last, 8 years or so. It is new research that has found that encountering facts, like actual true information, does little to fight the effect of misinformation. So if someone has been exposed to misinformation, trying to combat that with facts, truth, and science doesn't do anything to make them change their mind. They had a pretty interesting methodology to this study. And they wanted to balance it around an issue that there is definitive kind of scientific understanding about, but also a lot of disinformation about, and that people may have strong feelings about. It was water fluoridation, which for some reason I remember a long time ago, Suzanne Summers came up on this podcast. And I remember quickly looking at her Wikipedia page while we were recording and finding out that she was very big in the anti-water fluoridation movement. So that's just an aside.
And in the strong thighs movement.
Very, very powerful.
She's all about the power thighs and the clean water with no fluoride.
Yeah.
That's her legacy.
That's her platform. Yeah.
She's
gray teeth and strong thighs for a better America.
But either way, they expose people to different information in different sequences, and found that if they encounter misinformation first, before kind of seeing facts or counter information, you can't undo the misinformation. And so it just kind of telling them, well, science actually doesn't support that. It didn't work anymore. So the researchers suggested that the best way is that if there is an issue out there that is there's misinformation about, the only real effective way is to produce, essentially try to get the counter, be out in front with the counter narrative. So run, stories like water fluoridation conspiracy theorists debunked. You have to get out in front of the misinformation, or else it becomes so entrenched that facts no longer can encounter it. Now, again, I don't know how practical that is, because we don't, unless you control social media algorithms or something. I will say this, though. One of the things that I do think has been effective is, and I think a lot of people have a lot of opinions about X since Elon Musk takeover of the platform or purchase of the platform. I'm not trying to frame it in a nefarious light. Since he purchased the platform, has implemented changes. People have a lot of opinions. The community note feature, I think, is really effective, because a lot of times you'll run across a video or something, or even a tweet, but the way that the UI is on there, right below the tweet, and it's a little bit lighter of a color, so your eyes tend to read that first, I think is a perfect example of this. If you see something that there's a community note that's offering kind of a correction, they're
never subtle. It's always a thing, and then it's this isn't true at all.
Yeah.
Very
snarky.
But it puts this. But it puts this to the test. It's whatever, because I remember watching it was the other day. It was, and it doesn't even just have to be some conspiracy. It was someone posting a football highlight, and of a young quarterback, and talking about how terrible he was. But the community note said, this video does not show so-and-so. This is a different player at a different college, which he never played for. Totally dismantling it. And it was super effective, because if I had just seen that and not known this kind of random player's history, I would assumed this poor highlight was that player. And I was like, oh, that's a really good, when I read the study today, I was like, oh, that's a really effective way to kind of demonstrate the findings of this.
So question,
to kind of get out in front of it. Yeah.
Before we move on, are we pro fluoride in the water or anti? What's the latest?
Let's ask
personally.
Suzanne.
Yeah.
And I guess if we're pro, what is the argument against? I don't actually understand, because I've always thought it was a good thing, keeps your teeth healthy and white, and that's why Americans tend to have healthier oral hygiene than some other developed countries. And so then I see these conspiracy theorists saying they're poisoning us in the water with the fluoride, and I'm like, so what are they saying is the nefarious side of it?
Well, the conspiracy theory is that they, the kind of whoever
Big Fluoride,
is,
the dark state, the deep state,
exactly, is attempting to basically dumb down the population so that they pose less of a threat to people in power, and they link fluoride consumption to lower the gradual decline in intelligence, that it has a destructive effect on cognitive ability over time as a way to kind of keep the sheep in the herd. You know what I mean?
They really say that? Is there any proof of that? Like if I posted this on X, what you just said, would a community note debunk it?
Would a community note
debunk the idea that fluoride dumbs down your cognitive ability, et cetera, in time?
I don't know. I don't know if a community note would. I would assume it would. I would assume to say fluoride has been proven safe, but that is the typically the people that are against from my understanding, that are against. I'm not representing their views. I'm sure there's a whole cacophony of reasons people don't like fluoride, but I think the primary reason is that conspiracy.
You know, the other thing that the deep state is trying to do to America is make sure that our thighs are very weak, so then we can't fight back. So Suzanne Summers was on a crusade to strengthen our thighs and to remove the fluoride.
As fast. You can't kick as hard, you know. You can't jump.
Great American hero. She should be on Mount Rushmore with her strong thighs and her great teeth.
She's keeping tyrants in check is what she's doing.
Here's the thing with the anti-fluoride movement is like I see stuff about natural toothpaste that you can buy or whatever. That's great. Yeah. I don't want to spend $20 on one tube of toothpaste. Like, I'm fine, I guess, slowly poisoning myself if I'm only spending $3.99 in this economy. So maybe that's just
now
me.
You're making a case for like MSG and all the chemicals they put in, like trans fat and all the processed.
But MSG is actually, that's a really interesting conspiracy too. Like MSG is actually harmless and it isn't linked to headache and it's a naturally occurring substance.
Yeah, but they amp it up to an unnatural level, I've read, to make enhance the flavor, obviously cheaply, because it's a cheap substance they can add to fake your brain into tasting more robust flavors. But it has an addictive quality is what I've read. And that your brain and your body can get addicted to MSG, so it craves MSG. So that's why you want more Chinese food, you want more whatever, because it's full of this chemical that your body's addicted to.
Well, Jesse spoke first on that, and so I'm going to believe him.
Oh, good callback. That's good. What does Suzanne Summers think about MSG is what I'm wondering.
I just shared an article. This is actually a rabbit hole. It's funny. You mentioned MSG and I'm not, and listen, I don't have strong opinions about MSG or fluoride for that matter. I don't really care. But the MSG one, is one that I have gone down that rabbit hole, at the behest of David Chang. David Chang is very, pro MSG, and I listened to like the origins of some of the myths surrounding MSG date back to like one food reviewer who had a bad experience at like a Chinese restaurant like decades ago, and ever since then there's been a lot of myths perpetuated about the harmful facts about or harmful effects of MSG, not because people are conspiracy theories. It's just there's been a lot of incorrect assumptions made about it, and again, like it's just one of those things where this isn't like some sinister conspiracy theory. It's just kind of information that isn't necessarily accurate that's been out in the public sphere, and it's hard to dispute.
And to your original point of this slice is that we've heard all of our lives that MSG is addictive and bad. You want natural. You don't want additive chemicals in your food. It's unnatural. It's going to cause some people have symptoms like headaches, like you said. Some people who don't still could get addicted. It just messes with your brain chemistry. Stay away from it. We've all been told that. And now to your point, maybe that's completely untrue, but it's going to be really hard to unwind that in your brain and think of it as a good substance.
Yeah. And the people who believe it or kind of ask for no MSG or avoid it, I don't think they're bad people, right? Or they're not gullible people. It's just the brain science. Like the point of the water fluoridation, which they just picked a topic where there was substantive proof of one way or the other. But again, I think people who kind of believe these different ideas aren't like bad people or gullible people. It's the point of the study was to look at how the brain works, not necessarily, the
information itself.
Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting.
But if you ever, David Chang I haven't looked at it in a while, but he's written a lot about the MSG thing, which I thought was interesting.
See, but counterpoint though, I've told a lot of girls over my life, I'm a really good person to date. You'll really enjoy dating me. And then in time, they believe me at first, but then in time they realize total lie, so.
You might want to call up the people behind this study and
put that on Twitter and someone can do a community note.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a great person to date. You will enjoy it. A community note, not true at all.
You should have reverse psychology. Maybe you've heard of it. I'm awful at dating. Community note.
Confirm true. Yes. All right, Emily.
Really, really quick. Speaking of dating, can we just take a second to talk about Lana Del Rey's new boyfriend?
Because I am so glad you brought this up. I called Emily at the end of the workday yesterday. I was like, please, you are my conduit to celebrity drama. Please tell me about this. And she was like, I don't know that much about it. And I told her what I knew on the phone. She looked it up and our minds are blown.
Can I just say even prior to this, which Emily, I'm not going to steal your thunder here because this is another rabbit hole I ended up down recently. Prior to this, I was fascinated with her dating life because she was dating Styx from Live PD.
Yeah.
Live PD is the live cop show that I was obsessed with for a while. And he's a former police officer. And do you ever watch NFL Red Zone on Sunday where Scott Hansen, he goes, there's every game on and he's telling you, now we're going to go into, Ravens at New England. We're on the third goal. He would do that for live cop videos. So he is the Scott Hansen of cops, Styx, this former police. And she was dating Styx. And I was like, this is a great celebrity couple.
So here's a little context, and Emily, please, I want you to fill in the dots for me, but here's the context of what I knew, because I only knew bits and pieces like you, Jesse. You made me aware that she dated this cop in Oklahoma, former cop in Oklahoma. I then read a couple years later, she released an album that was really about the demise of that relationship. And she bought, to promote the album release, she bought one billboard and placed it where he lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So he had to see her album billboard. It was the only billboard in America promoting her new album. I thought, wow, that is oddly petty. I respect the move. Then, not long after that, her next album had a track on it featuring Judah Smith. Our friend, Pastor Judah Smith. And he's just preaching a good word. And it turned out she recorded it on her phone while she was at church. And I'm like, wow, she goes to Judah's church. This is inside of Lana Del Rey. I didn't realize. That's interesting. And then 6 months later, I read she's engaged. And I thought, good for her. She's new season of her life. She's kind of had a kind of crazy dating history. She's going to church now. She just got engaged. Good for her. This was maybe a year ago. And then all of a sudden, I see in the last week, she's dating an alligator torf airboat operator in Louisiana. And the way I found out about it was the person's daughter, the man's daughter, saw this post on social media and said, I just found out that my dad is dating Lana Del Rey, because this guy looks like he's 55 years old, gray-haired redneck guy. And then there was you swipe, and then she's screenshotting the family chat. She texted her dad and said, are you dating Lana Del Rey? And he said, oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to tell you about that. And then apparently he felt bad. So he texted the group chat. The man left the mom 3 days earlier saying, I want to divorce you. We're separating. Left 3 days earlier.
Oh, wow.
The daughter then sees 2 days after that, Dad is dating Lana Del Rey. Dad then texts the family chat saying, hey guys, sorry that you found out this way, but I'm dating Lana Del Rey. The mom and the group in the family chat goes off on the dad because this is crazy. And the daughters are caught in the middle, finding out about her Louisiana airboat operating dad dating Lana Del Rey because of social media. The guy had no clue that the word had gotten out because he's so old, he doesn't use social media. And so now there's this thing I thought a year ago she was engaged. Then I bring this up to Emily yesterday and she goes, her friend overheard us talking and her friend goes, nah, she dated Quavo from the Migos in between. And I'm like, wait, she went from engaged to breaking off the engagement to dating Quavo to dating an airboat operator in Louisiana. Please fill me in, Emily. What is going on with Lana Del Rey?
You covered so much, which was great because I agree. Lana Del Rey, not even just her dating history, just in general, her life is so interesting. I will be front row for that biopic that's going to come out one day. It's going to have 115 people in it just to cover like all of the people that she's kind of like had in her life. Like not even just dating, like just her little like side quests and stuff. Because y'all remember also a year ago in between. So she's been engaged, I think 2 to 3 times. At least 2, possibly 3 times. Girl loves to be engaged. Apparently doesn't love to be married. What's up with that? But anyways, she at some point last summer for about a week worked at a Waffle House
in Alabama.
Just for the fun of it. Yeah. Love that.
Just for the life experience. The thing, unlike Taylor Swift, who has famously dated a lot of people. A lot of people. She's written a lot of material about it publicly. I'm not saying anything she hasn't put on record. Okay. The difference is Lana Del Rey apparently has a similar dating history, but it's with cops from Tulsa and airboat operators from Louisiana and Migos. Like how
Taylor's dating?
How do you meet these people?
Taylor's dating artists. She's dating Kennedys. She's dating football players.
Other celebrities.
She is dating like top-notch people. Yeah, Lana is truly like, oh, my dad's best friend's boat tour guy. Like, it's just so random. So I was looking into like,
how did they
meet? Great question.
She knows.
They met back in 2019. When she was on tour, she did like a airboat tour with some friends while they were in Louisiana, and they kind of connected. Then he's not necessarily famous, but he has apparently done a few airboat tours for other celebrities. Like, there's a picture on his Instagram of him with Glenn Powell from a couple years ago where like he did a boat tour. So
he's the go-to celebrity alligator tour airboat operator near New Orleans.
Yes. We're learning. So they kind of,
he's so sort of, well, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so they met back in 2019, but like, I think it was just kind of like they met with whatever. Apparently earlier.
The man's full on married with a whole family at the time. He just has celebrity clients.
And then earlier this year, sometime around May, they reconnected because they kind of started being spotted together. And then they recently were spotted in London. That's kind of how they got made. And then, like all this is kind of coming out about like, when exactly did they like start a romantic relationship versus like, when did he actually leave his wife? Like there's I don't really want to say if it's a gray area at this point, but
it's a literal homewrecker story. And literally the man's full on, been married decades, has grown children.
Yeah. But I will say, like, I really just want anyone listening, any middle-aged working class man listening to this, please don't give up on dating Lana Del Rey. Wait in line. Your time is coming. Don't give up hope because you are next in line. Okay. Just keep that hope alive. That's all I really want to say.
Especially if you work in law enforcement or the exotic animal industry. That seems to be
if you frequent those areas, please continue to wait your time. It's coming. Okay. Be patient.
It's just the craziest thing.
It's so fun.
I have been like, I'm just trying to think. She's a client. She buys her $15 ticket for the airboat tour, with her friends. Yeah. It's just a kind of a funny story. How charming and funny and witty and just wonderful is this
the Riz
airboat operator?
Or does she just have low standards? Sorry, it has to be said. It has to be said.
Hold on, no. I want to go back. First off, the guy's got Riz, right? Like, obviously.
I have been on the Jungle Cruise at Disney multiple times. They have a funny banter, a repartee with
Sure.
I have never thought, love to date that person.
But here's my pushback, right? Because Emily, you said, Taylor, and I don't really care about her dating life, but her dating high quality people. It's like, what makes them high quality? That they are
fame and riches. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like the quality of the person, like why does it matter if they were a blue collar?
But primarily
not quality.
Taylor went after artists and creatives and intellectuals.
She's
and
dating Travis Kelce, which
famous
artist and intellectual. Yeah. But what I'm saying, the commonality is celebrity, right?
Yeah,
like,
pretty much.
Again, I think it's more of like the likelihood of them running into a circle seems clear. Like Lana bringing this guy to the Grammys, everyone's like, who is this man? Like, why
it's
is
the randomness of it?
Yeah.
Like how did their worlds intersect?
Yeah. I get the randomness part.
Yeah.
It seems random, but also
maybe she just loves a good like Cinderella story, but she wants to be
but the opposite.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have a slice, Emily, or is that your slice?
But wait, hold on. In that analogy, so instead of like basically an enslaved, poor, young abuse victim who has a heart of gold, you're replacing that figure with an airboat operator. That hunts gators.
Yep. Just to be clear.
Wouldn't you guys love like if they made this a rom-com?
Oh,
or a Hallmark type of.
I think about the like 2000s rom-com, like you had Flavor of Love, Rock of Love, like all the like celebrity men who were like having women fight after them. Lana Del Rey needs a love, like
it's like
Bachelorette type show. And it is truly just
like reality show. You said rom-com. You mean reality show.
Reality show.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just a bunch of Tiger King-esque men fighting for the hand of Lana Del Rey. I'm in.
I would watch that and like a rom-com where it's like loosely based on where it's like Vince Vaughn is like the down and out airboat tour operator, Like
he's kind of doing that right now with Bad Monkey on Apple TV Plus.
That's why he kind of came to my mind. Like what middle-aged actor, but has the Riz. You know what I mean?
He does have the Riz.
Honestly, he does have that thing. The character that he's playing right now has the thing of like everybody who is part of his life, their life gets worse. Like he's a bad. He's it's not his fault per se. It's just like. Yeah, there's a direct connectedness that don't date him or don't be friends with him. But he's kind of a loser and is on this like downward slope of his career and everything. And he is very charming and he's got the Riz exactly like you're talking about. And you could see why a guy who's a failure in life continues to get opportunities and friends and girls to like him.
Some women, and a lot of those women are Lana Del Rey fans, I will say, love that kind of man.
They want to fix him.
I'm not one of them, but I respect the women who go for the loser men. So
see, I just want a woman who's really into strong thighs and gray teeth, and can really just.
What's Suzanne doing these days?
Story about food additives,
the truth, and about the truth. She's about
common food additives.
Yes.
Who else? Is an actor who wouldn't fit this role, but went through this stage in his career, which is that character you're talking about, where every role became that was Bill Murray. It was post Lost in Translation, right?
You're
Basically, every role was that guy you're describing. Like he's down on his luck, kind of washed out. Probably is a drag on everyone around him, but he's got that something where
like him.
that charm. I mean, don't you agree that was most films he made
100%.
Since Lost in Translation?
100%. All right. Well, that'll do it for Slices. Stay tuned. Up next, Jemar Tisby joins us. You're listening to Orla Gartland and Declan McKenna. The song is Late to the Party. Well, today's show is brought to you in part by World Vision. We all subscribe to a lot of services that make our lives easier and more entertaining. But as followers of Jesus, we should want to seek first the kingdom of God in all areas of life, including our spending. That's why I'm so excited about a new kind of subscription through World Vision. Not one for myself, but for others. It's called Believers for World Change. And when you sign up, you're joining a community of change makers working to help end extreme poverty around the world and here at home. World Vision is a Christian humanitarian organization that works with children, families, and communities to reach their God-given potential, focusing on things like gender equality, spiritual nurture, and access to clean water, education, job training, and healthcare, so the entire picture of poverty can be addressed. Let's subscribe to something new together. Subscribe to World Change today at worldvision.org. Again, that's worldvision.org. Well, our guest today is Dr. Jemar Tisby. He's a historian and best-selling author with books like The Color of Compromise and How to Fight Racism. It's fantastic. He's just released a brand new book, The Spirit of Justice, which takes a closer look at forgotten heroes of faith who sought justice. We sat down with them to understand how our past can help us prepare for our future and what the church can do to continue to fight for justice for all. Here's our conversation with Dr. Jemar Tisby.
Why is it so important for us to look back on our past and understand where we came from?
So I recently read somewhere, and of course I have no idea where it was, so all credit anonymously to whoever you were, that of course historians can't predict the future, but by studying the past, we do find patterns, and those patterns help us live in the present. So one of the patterns that unfortunately keeps recurring is that for every step, every gesture toward racial progress, there's always a backlash. Some people would call it a white lash, but we see this in slave revolts in the 1800s. As soon as that happened, what happens? Harsher laws are passed to regulate Black bodies and movement. As soon as the Civil War is over and you get this very brief period called Reconstruction, in a way, the entire Jim Crow era is a backlash to emancipation and Reconstruction. And of course, right now, we had these historic racial justice uprisings in 2020. No sooner did the calendar turn to 2021 than you get a January 6th and an attempted insurrection, along with the anti-DEI, anti-CRT, all of that stuff. So what history does is help us to see those patterns, not necessarily to predict the future, but to situate ourselves in the context and understand that everything has a history. And maybe by exploring that history, we can navigate the present and the future more effectively.
I think that's a really interesting perspective to keep in mind, because a lot of people felt like we were making racial progress in 2020, and then we've kind of fallen back since 2021. From your perspective, do you think we're still moving forward, or are we at a bit of a standstill at this point?
So I know we look back on the promise of 2020 and it's, in many ways unfulfilled promise. I mean, we had corporations pledging millions of dollars to this. My book, the first book I wrote, The Color of Compromise, makes the bestseller list. Now you can hardly get anyone to pay attention to books about racial justice. So thank you for talking to me about the spirit of justice. So in that sense, there's a lot of ways where 2020 was disappointing, but I don't look at it as an abject failure. Because again, looking at history and the patterns, number one, it's never a majority of people who get on board with something like racial justice. It's always a minority of people numerically who are persuaded and convinced that we need to make progress in this area. And by the way, that's all it takes is a small number of people making the commitment and the sacrifices that go along with justice for great changes to occur. The other reason I don't look at 2020 as an abject failure is because people were catalyzed. Now, there were a lot of people who were catalyzed for like 2 minutes and then it got hard or another headline came and they're out. But there are some people, a remnant, for whom 2020 in particular was a pivotal moment and a life-changing direction occurred in that year, and they're still in the struggle, and and it may not have happened had we not had these historic uprisings in 2020. Now, I hope we can get to the point there where it doesn't take another Black martyr, another Black tragedy for people to get activated. And that's where books like The Spirit of Justice come in. You can be proactive about this stuff, y'all. You don't have to wait for the next murder, the next headline, the next whatever, right? So where we are in this moment, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. There's a lot more progress to be made. We're up against some really, really staunch opposition that arose partly in response to 2020. But what history also tells us is there's always a people who tap into the spirit of justice, ready to resist racism, white supremacy, and injustice, however it shows up.
Well, speaking of Spirit of Justice, your new book is out today, and it looks back on some really important forgotten faith heroes of justice. And, I think a lot of times we separate activists driven by faith from those driven by justice. But as you point out, there isn't a need to separate them because they're really being driven by the same thing. So tell me, how can we make sure our faith is intertwined with our pursuit for justice?
It's such a good question. And what I love about it is if you look at the Black Christian tradition, because of racism, we're excluded from more formal educational environments. So you don't necessarily find a lot of our history before a certain period of time in books, in systematic theologies, in curricula. So you got to really kind of be a detective and look for it in sermons, in letters, in autobiographies, and most importantly, in the lived witness of people, the lived theology of people. And so when Black people heard the gospel in the United States, because Christianity was in Africa long before slavery in the U.S. But when they heard it in the context of the U.S. and their situation of enslavement, they would hear about the Exodus, right? And see themselves in that book, in that story. Whereas many white people, they would look at Paul and see this very kind of logical, laid out theology and, build a theology off of that, which is post-resurrection, right? So you've got, enslaved Black people building a theology from the perspective of the oppressed, of a people who have been enslaved and persecuted. You've got white Christians in the United States building a theology off of the resurrected Christ, which is true, but they often downplay the suffering, downplay the cross, downplay the sacrifice that goes along with walking the path that Jesus walked, right? So you get these divergent theologies and starting points, but also you get Jesus in the New Testament reading from the scroll of Isaiah, saying that he came to proclaim liberty and to set free them that are captive. And they take that seriously, and they take that not simply spiritually, but as material and physical and on the earth right here, right now, not just for the heavenly by and by. So it's an embodied faith. It's a practical faith that deals with real people's issues where they are, often life or death issues, deep quality of life issues, from enslavement to segregation to ongoing racialization. And that's how you get, I think, a Black church tradition that is incredibly powerful and robust to address racial justice issues even today.
I've never thought about that perspective, like you said, of the Black church's theology being built on the Old Testament while the white church is built on the New Testament. But saying it out loud, it seems pretty clear to me. I mean, I think a lot of people like to say this all happened a long time ago, but clearly that foundation is still impacting us now.
And I think you just brought up a great point. Like, the way it's affecting us, to be concrete, is the way we learn what Christianity is all about, what the message is. And so with Black folks, there's always this kind of foundational, the message of the gospel is freedom. The message of the gospel is human dignity and equality in the face of an ideology, which we call white supremacy and racism, that insisted on dehumanizing a people made in the image of God because of the image they bore, their skin color, right? And there is a theology that many white Christians learn. Many are deconstructing now, many are rethinking now. But there's a theology that many white Christians learn that in more recent times has been termed colorblind theology, a colorblind approach to race. And again, I read online somewhere, I'm missing the attribution, but all credit where it's due. Somebody said, I don't want to engage with people who are colorblind because I'm invisible to them. If they can't see me in my fullness, then there's a sense in which they are blind to me. I am invisible to them, and they can't understand me. So we need to have a theology that is not colorblind, but color conscious and responsive to the ways that conceptions and constructions of race affect different people differently.
In your book, you differentiate between resistance, advocacy, and activism. Tell me, why is it important to draw that distinction?
So in the book, I include all kinds of examples of resistance to racism, if you will, right? And I wanted some way for people to understand why I was including certain examples without them thinking like, well, this isn't activism, this isn't resisting racism, right? And so I in the introduction, I talk about the difference between resistance, advocacy, and activism. And resistance is anything we do to flourish in a world that is bent against our flourishing, particularly around race, but it could also be gender, it could also be around income level, all of those kinds of things. Now, resistance is not always conscious. It's just you trying to live. So I tell the story of Anthony and Isabella, and they have a child named William, who could, in a sense, be termed the first truly African-American child, at least in British colonial Virginia. So he has two African parents directly from the continent, but they have this child, William, in North America, making him African-American. I term that a form of resistance, because when you have a child, that is a sign of hope. You're trying to instill in that child a sense of identity and respect for oneself and agency. So even the idea that you could have another generation and life could be better for them is a form of resistance in an anti-Black world. But there's another level. There's a level of advocacy. Advocacy is about amplification. So it's people who are taking different stories, taking different movements, taking different initiatives, and sharing the word. They're supporting, they're donating, they're volunteering, right? That is these are not like more holier levels or anything. These are just different ways of engaging in resisting racism. So there's the advocacy level, which a lot of us began to do in 2015 or 16 or 2020, right? And then there's the activism. Now, this is what we traditionally think of. This is the marches, the protests, the boycotts, the people literally putting their bodies on the line for justice. They're the community organizers, the people who do this for a living. They're on the front lines of activism. And so I include all of those examples throughout the book and the more than 50 different figures who I profile. And I just wanted us to understand how, writing poetry is a form of resistance right along with, being thrown in jail for being part of a march.
That was Dr. Jemar Tisby. Make sure to check out his new book, The Spirit of Justice. It's out today. You're listening to Marty. He's not here, but you're hearing him. The song is Love Like You. Man, I will tell you, and I tell this to my friend regularly, but he is one of my favorite stinking artists. I mean, his albums, the music he's been putting out this year has been incredible, including his new single. So go check it out. If you don't have him on your playlist, go add Marty's stuff. It's great. Well, Relevant has a lot happening this year, and we don't want you to miss a thing. Make sure to sign up for our newsletter right there on the front page at relevantmagazine.com, and we'll send you our top 5 trending stories sent to your inbox every weekday. We'll also send you a weekly podcast newsletter with the latest episodes, some fan extras, and first peeks at the new shows that we're going to be rolling out throughout this year. Make sure to sign up. It's the best way to keep in touch with everything we got going on. All right, it is time for...
It's a College Football Follies.
Well, it's college football is in full swing, really kicked off en masse on Saturday. So this is a game about college football traditions. And you will have to tell me whether the tradition I tell you is true or false. Okay? Pretty straightforward. True or false. Here we go.
We're playing this game because last week we played a Taylor Swift game for me. And so, Jesse, this one's for you. But hey, I could win.
Okay. We spent 20 minutes on Lana Del Rey. Let the man have college football, please.
I'm ready. I'm ready for this.
The University of Arkansas has a tradition where fans bring live pigs to games to, quote, call the hogs during touchdowns. Is that true or false?
Well, Arkansas used to play ORU quite a bit, and when I worked at the college baseball stadium, and I always dreaded those because the fans were very careless with their litter and a lot of cleanup. And I remember them after every run, they would go, "Go Hogs! Go Hogs!" So this checks out to me. I think they probably do.
You think they bring live hogs? That is false. The fans call the hogs, but there are no live pigs involved. So it's actually false.
That's shocking to me that on their home turf they wouldn't have, like, it wouldn't be like a 4-H meeting in the
They do say, what is it? Woo, pig suey. That's a big one.
You know, if live pigs were involved, where Lana Del Rey would be every Saturday during the fall.
Absolutely. She probably will be at one this fall. I wouldn't be shocked.
In my mind, if how I picture Arkansas game is like they march the pig out and and if they win, they cook it right there, and it put an apple in its mouth and they rotate.
It's like the Pop-Tart Bowl. Remember, the big Pop-Tart mascot at the end of the game went into the huge toaster and came out at the other side, and the winning team ate the Pop-Tart.
That was probably one of the greatest sports moments I've ever seen.
Why do they put the apple in the pig's mouth on that rotate? Who's eating that apple?
No, it adds flavor to it. Like, because it cooks, when it cooks. You never cooked a whole pig before?
You eat the apple? You're supposed to eat the apple?
No, but it cooks into, like when you cook it in the ground, it is seeping into the skin, like the meat and skin and stuff.
All right, Emily, every year Auburn University drops thousands of stuffed eagles from a blimp as part of their pregame celebrations. True or false?
Okay, Auburn. Is that what you said?
They're the
War Eagle. Yeah.
The Auburn Tigers, but they call themselves War Eagle.
Wait, that confused me because I was like, I thought they were tigers. How is an eagle and a tiger related?
It doesn't. It's always confused everybody. We have no idea.
Well,
it's the same as Georgia Tech as the Rambling Wreck and the.
Don't use another sport analogy to make sense to me. That's not going to help. I'm going to go false on this one.
It is false. Auburn has a live eagle that flies around the stadium, but no stuffed eagles drop.
It seems like an environmental concern, to be honest with you. There's a lot of stuffed eagles.
Jesse, Clemson University fans famously run down a hill called the Hill of Glory before every home game, a tradition that's been going on since 1942.
It seems random and kind of dumb enough just to run down a hill. And to deem that hill the Hill of Glory, that I'm going to say it is, in fact, true.
It is true. This is known as running down the hill, but it's just called the Hill instead of the Hill of Glory. Anyway, Emily, here we go. The University of Tennessee's marching band performs the same routine at every home game where they form a giant orange T and the football team runs through it.
This is tough because I live in Tennessee now, but I don't know anything about the University of Tennessee. I'll say true. That sounds like a fun tradition.
It is true. It's called the Power T. Jesse, here we go. At Florida State, the mascot, Chief Osceola, rides into the stadium on a Harley-Davidson motorcycle instead of a horse. No.
At Florida State?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I can picture is the horse. I mean, the Harley seems...
But remember, we're in the era of PETA. And live animals
and it's Florida where anything goes.
They got them marching around the stadium with police officers on the back. I'm going to say this is true.
It is false. Chief Osceola rides on a horse named Renegade. So you were right. Go with your first sentence.
It was my bad. I thought it was the horse.
All right, Emily, here we go. At Harvard, it's tradition for students to bring raw fish to the game and throw them at the opposing team's bench during the second quarter.
That better be false. Otherwise, I'm going to sue someone. Okay.
There's no connection to truth on that one. It was totally made up. It is false. God. Here we go. All right, Jesse, at Michigan State, fans hold up cucumbers whenever the opposing team attempts a field goal, believing it distracts the kicker.
It seems effective, but I don't recall that happening. I'm going to go false.
It is false. Totally fabricated.
Pause. How is it effective?
I don't know. How do you see it? Like a sea of cucumbers waving around? Yeah. What are you going to do? You're going to look at them.
Distracting.
Okay, sure.
Emily, here we go. The University of Wisconsin has a tradition called Jump Around, where fans jump up and down to the House of Pain song during the start of the fourth quarter.
I want that to be true, and now I want to go to a game there because I want to do that.
It is true. Yes. It's been going on since the 90s. All right, Jesse, here we go. Texas Tech University's mascot is a masked rider who gallops around the stadium on a horse every time the team scores.
I'm going to keep going with yes on all horse-related questions.
It is true. That is correct. The masked rider is a key tradition. Emily, here we go. At Ole Miss, fans participate in Grove Goose Parade, where they dress up like geese and march through the tailgating area before the game.
I feel like people dressed up as geese would make news a lot more often, so I'm going to go with false.
It is false. Correct.
I wanted it to be true.
Jesse, at Notre Dame's Play Like a Champion Today sign was originally a joke started by students, but became a serious tradition after they kept winning.
I'm going to go true.
It is false. The sign was intentionally placed there as part of a motivational tradition. No jokes.
It is kind of a haphazardly constructed sign.
It is.
Looks like a child wrote it.
That is true. Emily, all right, we'll do one round after this one. Emily, during the University of Washington's games, a giant inflatable husky floats around the stadium barking whenever the team scores.
False.
Correct. False. There's no inflatable Husky. All right, last ones. Here we go. Jesse, the University of Texas has a cannon named Big Bertha that fires every time the Longhorns score a touchdown.
Yes, true.
It is true. Big Bertha is a real cannon used in their celebrations. And Emily, last one. Vanderbilt fans, right there in Nashville, Vanderbilt fans bake and bring dozens of homemade cakes to every game, which they throw onto the field if their team wins.
Wait, I do think that is true. Or maybe I just dreamed it one time. I'm going to go true.
It is false. Vanderbilt University fans do not bake cakes that they throw.
That seems very wasteful.
When I lived in Nashville, I'm a big Gators fan, and Vanderbilt's in the SEC, and so it just so happened that Florida played at Vanderbilt one of the years I was there, so I went. But I bought tickets on the street, whatever cheap ones I could get. And if Vanderbilt fans, especially at that time, the stadium's empty. There's this one sliver, the one section of Florida fans that's totally packed, and then it's empty. And I was just sitting in random seats. But there's people all around me, Vanderbilt fans. And so, but I'm decked out in Gator stuff, and I'm yelling Gator stuff, and I talk trash during games, and I'm like making fun of Vanderbilt players, and they're terrible. Turns out I was sitting in the Vanderbilt players' parents section, the players I was mocking relentlessly, they told me at halftime was their son. That's my brother, that's my whatever people, but they waited till halftime to tell me of my folly. So,
I bet if they had a cake, they would have thrown it on you.
Maybe they should have come armed with homemade baked goods.
Yeah.
To lodge at the jerk in the Florida gear.
That's what they should have done. Anyway, all right, that'll do it for
It's the College Football Follies.
Well, before we wrap things up, I want to thank Dr. Jemar Tisby for joining us today. Make sure to check out his new book, The Spirit of Justice. It releases today. Also, make sure to check out the current issue of Relevant Magazine. Issue 115 is out now, featuring an amazing cover story with Letitia Wright. We also have Caleb Hearn, Judah and the Lion, local natives, a eye-opening conversation with Carl Lentz, WNBA legend Maya Moore, and a lot more. You can check it out on our website, or if you're a Relevant Plus subscriber, you can read the beautifully designed interactive digital magazine. It's all part of your Relevant Plus subscription. Plans start as low as $250 a month, and you get not only the magazine, but you get this podcast commercial free. You also get an ad-free, unlimited reading experience at relevantmagazine.com, plus more. Check it out. You can sign up right there at the site. Okay, on that note, we'll wrap it up. I'm Cameron Strang.
I'm Jesse Carey.
I'm Emily Brown.
Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you on Friday.
Thanks for listening to the Relevant Podcast. Check out our features, interviews, and news updates every day at relevantmagazine.com. And make sure to follow Relevant on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest. For more great podcasts, browse the shows on the Relevant Podcast Network, which you can find at our site. And while you're there, don't miss the all-new era of Relevant Magazine. A new issue releases every other month at relevantmagazine.com.
Wouldn't you guys love if they made this a rom-com?
Relevant Podcast Network.